We ordered all our materials from Amazon.com. I'll put the links below. That's the stainless steel wire. It comes with a cutter which is really quite easy to use. And these are the protector sleeves which protect the wire as well as the wood. That's the hydraulic crimping tool. I suggest you buy the hydraulic one and not the long manual one. This is far more easier and more effective to use, although it's a little bit more expensive. These are tensioner rods which you'll require to tighten the wire. And then we had to prepare the deck. I've already removed the top part of the railing, which was already rotten. And you can see the slats which interfere with the depth of your vision, especially if you have a nice view from your deck. You want to have as little obstruction as possible. These planks, the rotten planks, are very difficult to remove. You need a nice crowbar. Now the top part of the wood and there the lower part, I have taken them off and put them horizontally, as you can see, so that I get as much space as possible, and left about an inch at the bottom for the water to drain and also to clean the deck. I put it in place with diagonal screws and put some putty on top, polished the top nicely, and also used a planer to get all the rough bits off and also to round the edges. And so now the edges are nice and round and it's very, very smooth. I used black paint because it does not reflect and thereby gives a sense that there's nothing obstructing your vision. Next, you have to drill holes through the vertical posts, and the distance of these holes to thread the wire in through depends on the code in your state. In our state, it's 5 inches. I took a plank of wood and put some markings starting from the wood on top to the one at the bottom, and made them equidistant, 5 inches apart. Next, I drilled a hole through it which would go right through the post, making sure it's absolutely horizontal, and this plank of wood helped me with drilling it horizontally so that the wire doesn't get kinked as it goes through the post. Cutting the wire isn't as difficult as it looks. And it's after you've done one or two of them, it's really quite easy. Just take the length of wire. You don't have to be very exact at this stage. Next, we need to crimp the sleeve over the wire. This is a hydraulic one, and in spite of being hydraulic, you do have to use a lot of pressure, and it does require 2 people to work this. Next, we are going to crimp the wire over the sleeve. This is the sleeve which goes at one end of the wire. You put it in there, just tighten it a bit to start with so that you can hold it in place, and then thread the wire into the sleeve. After that, it requires a lot of pressure. You require 2 people, one to hold it in place, and I almost had to stand on it to crimp it. It requires a lot of pressure. Once it's crimped, you can't reverse the process. Next, you take the wire and you thread it in through the pre-drilled holes with the sleeve at one end, which will come and hold the wire at this end, and you thread it first through the center of the post, the holes in the center of the post, and then up and down so that you get the tension right. Cut the wire to roughly the right length. We'll do the exact cutting once we reach the other end of the posts. And once you are there, this is the tensioning rod, and it is also has it's like a sleeve and you put the wire into it. But this is where you require some exact measurements. So you first take the wire and measure it, pull it nice and tight so that it's touching one end of this sleeve. Now here goes the sleeve inside. Make sure it's not coming out a lot on the other side, because you need some place to tighten the nut afterwards. And so it shouldn't be coming out a lot, just a bit, not too little either. And then you put a mark right at the end of the sleeve, and then you put another mark roughly about 1.5 inches on which you are going to crimp this wire. And once that's done, then you tighten it to get the right amount of tension in the wire. So here's the other mark. You cut the wire out there, thread it in the tensioner, and then crimp it on top. The wires are now all in place, and I've tightened them. Not as tight as a guitar string, but tight enough so that they give support to the pillars as well. And you can see now the finished product. You don't have the slats that you had before, and it gives a much more sense of openness. The black paint, I think, was a good idea because it doesn't reflect. And here you can see the wires fairly tight. You can do the adjustment from this end, tighten them, and then put the cap on top so that it doesn't look bad. And these are the sleeves, and at the end is the other sleeve with the end to hold it in place. And all the wires are nice and tight. I loosen them a bit in winter because they are fairly taut. That is the end of my project.